Here's one about the Trabants. Anyone keep a Trabant in the garage in Ireland just for good times?
A very small one. Small one. No, unfortunately. But we have them in storage. In fact, some of them are at the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame in Cleveland. We painted them up for the tour. Some were covered in mirrored squares. Some were covered in fur. We did a sort of Klaus Oldenburg pop art thing with them, and they became really a big part of the tour, iconography.
That last one was from Dean Cooper. This is from Crystal Foreman. What is even better than the real thing? Is there anything that isn't finished on sorry. What is even better than the real thing? Is there anything that isn't finished on the album? That's from Crystal Foreman.
On Acting Baby or on...
Maybe read that. I'm not a good reader.
I mean, the thing about this band is we don't really finish an album, it just gets released. And so there's pretty much every single song that we've ever released we would probably want to change in some ways, some profound ways in some cases. But we always get the chance when we play live to adjust things and change things around.
You know, you shouldn't really explain titles. Even better than the real thing is a sort of a pop art thought. But as I'm looking at it now, I'm thinking of Woody Allen's line, "There's no such thing as bad sex," and I think the carnality of it was an important part of what was going on in that album.
Has everyone seen the Damien Hirst video that he made for the song?
Yeah, he made a very special artwork which was only been shown once and will probably not be shown again, but it's at Glastonbury, the UK festival, and it's an extraordinary work of art. He's an extraordinary artist, and and he really went at it. But you know, sometimes these words or these thoughts, they become just kind of meditations, and you'll never fully understand them, but you feel them, you know. Is there anything that isn't finished on the album? There's a thing that's happened. The Q magazine, which is a very important music magazine in the UK, they have commissioned various artists to do a song of On Acton Baby to come out in the fall. And there's some extraordinary versions. Jack White does Love Is Blindness. Depeche Mode do You're So Cruel. Patti Smith, who we were just talking about, did Until the End of the World. Damien Rice does one. I mean, it just goes on. There's just a list of incredible artists. And it's strange because when I hear the album, when you two do it, all I hear is what's wrong with it. But when I heard all these artists doing it, I thought, that's really good. So.
Have you ever finished a song and say, I really like that?
Miss Sarajevo is the one that when I hear come on the radio, I don't cringe. And maybe because that's very...
One.
And I like, if I'm out,
Yeah.
and you know, there's nothing worse than being out in a club and somebody puts on one of your tunes. It's like, oh, I was just having a good time. And but if Vertigo comes on in a club,
It's okay.
I think, ooh, that's okay.
That's good, because in the old days it used to be something like New Year's Day or Sunday Bloody Sunday, which is fine, but if you happen to be on the dance floor, it's kind of embarrassing when they play your song and then everyone leaves the dance floor because they can't dance to it. That's happened a few times.
Can I ask you a question about the making of this film? In making a documentary, there's always kind of a period of breaking the ice with the subjects and kind of, you know, getting through. So there's this feeling of trust between. Can you talk about that experience of breaking the ice with these guys?
I can't wait for it to happen. No, I mean, I think it really helped that Edge and I worked together on It Might Get Loud. I think no matter what documentary or movie you make, it's a relationship that just takes time, and I think I've been doing something different where I just do these interviews, just me and the subject. I interviewed each member of the band separately, just sound only, alone with sort of no time limit, and it would just be a conversation. And some of that is just getting to know each other, and some of it's they have a wandering nature to them. I have zero plan for them, and it allows a conversation to start and a relationship to begin, and that. But it's still a process. I mean, last night was another step in the relationship, because it's still like there's something adversarial about making a movie about something that you don't know neither side wants, but it is naturally there.
Oh, it absolutely is. It absolutely is, and I'm still trying to figure it out how we let him in to the level that we did, and it's very interesting because we are, as a band, very protective and aggressive.
Well, for good reason, I think, because when working with people who have great intentions but maybe don't quite have the rigor of a filmmaker like Davis, you can be completely misrepresented with a project. And for me, when Davis agreed to do this, I felt I could relax, because I knew that the thing that he was most interested in was actually the truth, as opposed to what was a great shot, or what might kind of be sensational. And so he was very rigorous with us in the interviews. If we were not kind of in the moment, if we were being self-conscious, he would change the subject, because he could tell when we were speaking without being in any way aware of the situation or what was going on, the process. And so the stuff that's ended up in the film are those moments where we're really being honest, where we're unguarded.
A little bit of sensationalism would have been good. Few great shots. I just couldn't. I felt like I was mugged, and what really annoyed me was I didn't know I was being mugged because of the way he carries himself.
Well, pickpocketed.
Yeah, it was sleight of hand, and I'd be used to having the fight, bit of arm wrestling, all of that, but I just felt like I ended up in the trunk, bound and gagged. I saw this film, 2 rough cuts. The first time I was like, oh gosh, I know this is great, but I have to see it again to see how I feel about it. Second time I saw it, I really didn't like it. He didn't change a thing, and there was things that he was unhappy with. He changed. I think if they were, I think I made 2 comments. I don't know, 3, but lead singers are not great at being ignored, but it was. I'm really glad now. I actually nearly enjoyed it last night, and I think because I could see that. I thought it would be very indulgent. I thought it would be a little but it is solipsism. But actually, more importantly, this thing of wanting to unearth what it is the creative process seemed to be of interest to the audience, and they were along for it. And I was like, oh wow! So I was quite relieved. But he's a remarkable filmmaker because his ego is the thing that he is prepared to put aside for the project he's working on. And so you have to put yours aside too.
You talked last night on stage about this being like watching sausages get made, but as people were coming out of the theater, I think they felt like it made the sausages more tasty. It gave them a bigger appetite to go back and try those sausages again. That's what my wife said anyways.
That's great.
Davis, you talked about doing these audio interviews with them, which come out in the film, and sometimes we know who's talking, and sometimes we don't. It's almost like it's a collective voice of this organism.
I say all the smart things. That's how you know.
That's true always.
Can you talk about that, the idea behind the way those voices are used in the film?
Well, I think it's actually showing you the rough cut was similar to showing Al Gore the rough cut of Inconvenient Truth. That there's, I mean, you've had your life in the media, since when we were 17 and 18 trying to figure out who we are, these guys were being talked about and questioned, and up until now. And that's true with a politician. And so there's a sort of an extra on guardness. But the other part about it is that the audience starts the movie with a relationship with these guys. Everyone who came into the movie last night was bringing the first chapter of the story to the movie. And so the movie has to fight against that baggage that people bring in, that the audience brings in. And so these audio interviews are an attempt to, interesting, what's effective is taking you off camera and keeping those interviews very stripped down and very raw and unself-conscious. So that in fact, the first person on camera is Eno, I believe, and it's a good 20 minutes in, and that's intentional. So the audience has when you talk about writing, goes from the feeling of these characters, as opposed to, the idea of these characters, and it is weirdly, a kind of. You start your song from a feeling and an impression. The movie has to start that way too, to fight against, I think, what people are bringing into the movie.
This movie joins a long tradition of music documentaries. You can go back to the 1960s, films like Don't Look Back and Gimme Shelter. And I wonder if there are films like that or other insights into the making of other bands' music that you've learned from, or in the same way that fans approach this film and learn something new about your creative process. Have you learned things about other people's creative process?
The Last Waltz. Martin Scorsese's The Last Waltz. I've seen it 10 times. That's I would recommend that for anyone. That was a real insight into a band, actually. And then they really did. That was the end of it. It was them at their peak, and then they were gone. What about you?
Don't Look Back. The Dylan film is such an incredible piece of work because it captures a moment in his career where he decided to turn his back on the folk scene, which he'd been the king of. So he effectively walked away from one fiefdom to sort of go and seek his fortune elsewhere, and that's kind of for us a great lesson again of somebody who does not want to be pigeonholed, is prepared to sacrifice a lot to move forward. And of course now we can look back and go, well, of course that was the thing to do, and he made all those great records with the band and whatever. But at the time, I'm sure he wasn't sure, where it was going to go and whether it was the end of his real success, and but he made that decision to just go for it. And I think we would certainly be inspired by that.
Tom, have you seen the Neil Young documentary that's coming